So there are several ways in which you can populate a scene within 3DSMax. So Corona is one of them, but then TyFlow is another. TyFlow tends to be a bit more parametric. It's a lot easier to create some interesting designs and then really play and tweak them to exactly how you'd want them to be. So we'll look at how to do this in TyFlow today. So we're just starting out with a basic ground plane that we've just put a noise modifier on. We're going to add the TyFlow modifier, of course. And we're going to open up that TyFlow menu. So to start, we're just going to add a birth command. Alright, so we're just going to adjust that birth command. We'll have to obviously come back to this later, but you can just change how much you want to populate this ground plane. So next we're just going to add the position object modifier to the scene. And this is just going to make sure that all the objects we're adding to the ground plane are facing the correct orientation. And you can start to see little tiny dots appearing along that surface. Next, we'll just be adding the shape command in order to actually specify that we want these dots to be blades of grass. Thankfully, within TyFlow, they actually have built-in grass already, so there's no need to import it from Evermotion or any other software. So we'll just scroll down this list here, and we'll select, where is it? Yep, the short grass. And then on the display option, we'll just choose geometry, and you can see that there's now grass being generated on our scene. We'll just bump this up to show you. It gets quite intense. We might have to shrink this ground plane down slightly, or just not display the geometry itself. And so now you can just see this grass at a different view. We'll start a quick Corona renderer. Interactive renderer window, just so you can see how it'll look. Alright, so you can see that the actual grass textures haven't loaded yet, it's just that ground plane texture. So in order to get those grass textures to load, we just have to add a few more modifiers to our TyFlow. Alright, so we'll just, in order to add textures to this grass and make it visible within the renderer, we'll add the instance material modifier. And this will allow us to attach a material to our blades of grass. We'll then add the mapping modifier. But before we do that, we'll quickly just drag over our grass texture that we've just started to use. For the sake of this, I'll just use a mossy green texture. Won't be completely accurate, but it'll work. And we'll just add that mapping modifier now underneath the instance material. There we go. Alright. And we'll just pick the ground plane as our reference. And now in order to actually render the blades of grass, we'll add a mesh modifier so that it should all appear within our interactive renderer window. Alright. And it's just quickly loading, but you should be able to see the blades of grass loading in now. They currently share a texture with the ground plane, so it's hard to see them. I'll quickly fix that. Alright, so the texture's been fixed, but you'll notice the scale isn't quite right. So we'll quickly just bump up the scale within TyFlow and then go from there. Alright, so you can see with the increased scale and density that it's becoming a lot more visible. Alright, now after just adding a bit more variety and fixing up the lighting and the general kind of scene itself, you can see how much of a difference it begins to make once this grass texture actually starts to load. We'll just get the lighting correct. Alright, and yeah, you can really see it here where you get quite a realistic grass texture for your scene. Again, it could be far more realistic with a proper environment and better textures on the grass itself, but as far as the actual placement goes, it's about as good as you could ask for.